Into Ducks Digest. We have a big episode today to get into. The Ducks hosting their biggest recruiting event of the year, certainly in 2021, Saturday Night Live in Eugene tomorrow. Wanted to bring on Ducks Digest writer Reed Tingley to break this thing down. Reed's really plugged into Oregon recruiting, and he's been writing for us for a little bit now. Reed, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm excited to be in Eugene to actually cover this event in person, be back in Autzen Stadium and see some live football type action. So it'll be really fun.
Yeah, it's anytime you get the opportunity to go back into Autzen, certainly is always a good time. So yeah, man, I kind of just wanted to hop on with you and let's just kind of preview this event, right? You got tons of big names coming in for the Ducks, whether that be recruits that are already committed in the 2022 class, which is tops in the Pac-12, or prospects, recruits that aren't committed at this point. So we kind of have some big names that we want to talk about here. So off the top, Reed, just want to ask you, who are some of the names that are standing out to you?
Yeah, I think for me, it all kind of starts with the players that are already in the fold for the Ducks. I think that, when you look at that commitment list right now, it starts at quarterback usually, Tanner Bailey, coming all the way across country to attend this event in person. If this goes well, it's probably going to be a lot about, people seeing his talent and realizing that they want to be a part of a class kind of led by him at quarterback. So that's something I'm excited to see, and I'm excited to see how he plays in person. Obviously, I haven't gotten the chance to see that before, so I think you got to start with that quarterback first off the list.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And I mean, I think that not only is it good because it's not an official for him, so that's kind of like you kind of can book another trip for him in advance down the line, I guess I should say. But yeah, kind of just like what you were saying, you want to have that guy who, even if he's not necessarily the highest rated person in the class or the headliner, he's, in many instances, the quarterback becomes the headliner of your class, the face of your class. We saw that with Ty Thompson last year. And, after he committed, it was kind of a domino effect. So not necessarily what we're going to see just because Bailey comes to this one event, but certainly big, like you were saying, have him be around the commits or other recruits, the coaching staff, just kind of have that energy. And then, for pass catchers too, whether it be wide receivers, tight ends, running backs to a degree, they're going to be able to come to this event and say, hey, that's the guy who's going to be throwing me the ball if I end up coming here.
Right, exactly. And obviously the Ducks have kind of a full room of pass catchers in this class already, but they have a few more big names on there. Another one that is huge this weekend is Kevin Coleman, the 5-star. That's, at the top of the list or near the top of the list of recruits that Ducks fans are going to be really excited to see at this event. And I think that, like you said, his chemistry with Tanner Bailey could go a long way in pushing the Ducks into the top of his list.
Yeah, the Ducks do already have a pretty good haul of wide receivers right now, but I think they're probably looking to add at least one more guy, and Coleman's right at the top of that list right now. Him alongside Tyrone McMillan. I was doing a little bit of digging on Coleman, and I believe the only visit he's taken this summer so far is to Tallahassee to check out Florida State. He's a St. Louis guy, so both of those trips are a decent distance for him, but certainly big for the Ducks to get him on campus. You kind of seen the narrative with him about Oregon kind of being a dream school, something that's definitely been interesting for him. And just while we're talking about him, I mean, I've noticed in this 2022 cycle, the Ducks have sent out a ton of offers in Missouri. Certainly, I think kind of a state that is maybe a little bit underrated that I certainly wasn't giving enough credit for. But it's kind of cool just to see, these new states emerge. And it's just another example of how the Ducks are a national brand and they're just all over the country looking for the best guys.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, especially when you look at Missouri. I mean, that's, right there in the wheelhouse of Texas that obviously Oregon has also made a big push into this cycle. But I think the interesting thing about Missouri is that it's kind of on the border between SEC country and Big 12 country, which now might be disintegrating, but I think it's kind of fair game in that way. It's not locked down to any program. Mizzou has struggled a bit in recent years, so I think there's some opportunity there. Obviously, Oregon also picked up 5-star Dante Manning I believe he was out of St. Louis as well 2 cycles ago or whatever it was. So yeah, I think that's a really interesting push that Oregon is making, not only in Missouri specifically, but in that region with Texas as well.
Yeah, I think Dante Manning might have been out of Kansas City.
Oh,
Let me
okay, maybe.
see. Okay, Kansas City, I think, yeah. But no,
Yep.
yeah, perfect example. The fact that Oregon's getting some of the best players from that state as well. For those that don't know, I believe Manning was an Oklahoma commit before he ended up coming to Oregon. So Ducks are making that move as well. And then just to talk about a couple of the other big commits that are going to be in town, Reed, we got wide receiver Stephon Johnson. He was one of the earlier commits in this cycle. I've kind of gotten to know his dad a little bit, and learned a lot about kind of Stephon's background, Boogie's background, I should say, because his dad's also named
Right.
Stephon. But I mean, just a quick side note. I mean, he's trained with some absolutely phenomenal talent. I think I was talking to his dad the other day, and he was telling me he had trained with Derek King and other players that are at Texas A&M. Just major talent out of Texas. And I think that, Boogie is one of the most underrated commits in this class. I don't really like kind of going into that narrative because it just doesn't really go that many places. But, I think what his dad was telling me is that he didn't go to a lot of these big time, like fluff camps kind of.
Right.
So maybe he doesn't have the best rating. And he's like, yeah, no, I like the fact that he's not rated super highly because it just motivates him. But he's definitely one of the best pass catchers in the country. And I think it's going to be huge to have him and his kind of energy and swagger at this event.
Yeah, when you talk about Stephon Johnson, I mean, like you said, any of those players who come from the state of Texas usually are going to be rubbing shoulders with a lot of successful football players in programs that take the sport really seriously. So I always, like the chances of a guy coming out of Texas to pop once they make it out to Oregon. And I also think that with him, I'm excited because, it's another scenario where Oregon was somewhat of a dream school there. And so it'll be exciting for him to kind of actually make it up here and get to play in Autzen for the first time with some of the other commits. So that should be fun.
No doubt. Yeah. And then the last guy I kind of had on our little list here that I wanted to talk about for commits was Sir Mel's. I think he's I've talked to him a couple times, and he's an awesome kid. He kind of has a similar energy to Johnson, I think. And just the fact that they were able to bring him on campus is so big because people, for those that don't know, the last time he was on campus, he ended up committing. So he's just a prime example of, when all Oregon needs to do is get some of these guys on campus and, they just fall in love with it. Everything kind of falls into place. And, that could end up, resulting in a commitment. So I think that's pretty huge when we're talking about kind of some visitors as far as the commitments go. So that's kind of what I wanted to, leave the commits. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about before we moved on to some of the uncommitted guys?
No, I think we can transition to the uncommitted list for sure. And for me, the next name that really comes off there is Cyrus Moss. He's going to be he's not quite a 5-star yet, I don't think, but he's trending that direction potentially. And he's kind of that big edge rusher that Oregon really wants to land this cycle. I think that he's one of the guys that Oregon is closest to getting or in one of the best positions for. And it's a really big recruitment because obviously Kayvon Thibodeau is probably leaving for the NFL after this coming season, it would seem. And I think Cyrus is the type of guy that you want to step in there as a real threat to kind of wreak havoc in the backfield and pressure the quarterback. So that's a big recruitment and one of the biggest names for sure showing up to the event tomorrow.
Yeah. Cyrus is, definitely a big time talent. I talked to him after that Oregon official visit, which was his first of 5 official visits, that recruits are allotted. And, he just had nothing but good things to say about that visit and about the Oregon trip. Kind of a cool detail that sticks out to me is when he was talking to one of the staffers, he was saying, yeah, I kind of want to get a Jeep this summer, kind of just a cool thing to do. And then, what do the staff do? They take him out on, the back roads and Eugene here with a Jeep, on a kind of a cool ride. So it just shows, how much attention to detail that this Oregon staff has when it comes to recruiting. And, Moss is also a big guy in Nevada. a state that's really underrated, I think, and kind of emerging as another pipeline state for Oregon and many other programs. Sir Mel's coming out of Henderson, so that's obviously pretty huge. We were just talking about Kevin Coleman. Reed, I was just looking at Cyrus's Twitter here, and the two were kind of tweeting back and forth, saying like, "Hey, who wants to play with me in college?" So like, I think when you're covering recruiting, you can't put too much value and things like that, because I really don't think it holds much meaning at the end of the day. But that'd be quite the pair if they were to team up at Oregon.
Yeah, I think that's probably a dream scenario for most Ducks fans to end this class.
Yeah, no, sure. It definitely is. But yeah, the Ducks have been involved with Moss for a while now. You talked about him replacing KT. He was saying, I kind of see their vision and how they want to do that. I think he's interesting when you're looking at him as a prospect, because he's super athletic, really quick, but honestly, he doesn't have a ton of meat on him. He's a pretty skinny guy. For someone in that 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" range. But certainly a body that Ducks have had success with in past recruiting cycles.
Right, exactly. I mean, there's no question about Coach Feld's ability and the rest of the strength and conditioning staff. So I think, if you look at how successful he's already been now, still with a bit of a leaner frame, and you kind of project what's the potential for him once he gets in a real high level strength and conditioning program, the sky's really the limit for him. I think he could transform into one of the best pass rushers in the country a few years down the line. Obviously that's a ways away, but he has all the makings of that type of special talent, I think, for sure.
No doubt. So we got some big names that we're looking at already. We started with Coleman on the offensive side and then switched over to defense with Moss. Who are some of the other guys that you're going to kind of have your eye on, or you think it's really significant that they're making this trip when they are?
Yeah, I think two big ones for me are Jaleel Tucker and Jaleel Florence out of Lincoln High School in San Diego. I think they're both cornerbacks, and that is significant because the Ducks are looking to add cornerbacks in this cycle. They don't have any committed right now. They've got the two safeties, but that's a real position of need for the Ducks at this point. And a lot of people, myself included, think that they're in a pretty good position for those two players, at least strongly involved. But actually having them come up and take this visit is going to be a big step in kind of securing their position more so. And especially with the recent commitment of Zeke Berry to Arizona, and then I think Terrence Brooks to Ohio State, those are two big talented targets off the board for the Ducks in this cycle. And so that just makes it that much more important that they do land both Tucker and Florence, or at least one of the two.
Yeah, it's definitely a good situation for them as far as package deals go. We were just talking about Moss and Coleman. That's kind of just early in the works, but especially with two teammates coming from the same area, I think it's maybe a little bit more of a likely scenario. Just a little quick note here. Florence included the Ducks in his top 3 schools back at the beginning of the month. Those 3 schools being Oregon, Washington, and Michigan. But the Ducks have had a great presence in San Diego, for a while now. Lincoln's been a big school. The Robinson brothers went there. Tyree was the one that ended up, playing football his entire time at Oregon. But we got Grayson Halton also in the San Diego area. But yeah, it's going to be big for them to hopefully make some strides here in their recruitment. Maybe they just need to get those guys on campus to potentially seal the deal there.
Right. And the Ducks also have been aided in their pursuit of San Diego by their former quarterback, Akili Smith, who's based down there. He's involved in the high school football scene or prep football. And so I think that he's someone who's not shy about his love for Oregon, his love for the Ducks. And I think that that's been a help for their recruiting efforts in San Diego, no doubt.
Yeah. It's always nice to have, an alum, especially someone who did that well, kind of down there, pushing the Ducks along a little bit. Let's switch it up a little bit. Let's 2022 is the big group that everyone wants to focus on, but all the best programs are already making strides in 2023. And that's not to say that Oregon isn't one of the best programs, when it comes to recruiting, but they have, they got to get going in 23. So we got a couple guys that we want to talk about here, Reed. And I think, the first one that I'm excited to talk about actually comes from my hometown, San Jose, California, wide receiver Jurion Dickey from Valley Christian, same school where the Ducks found Byron Marshall, who is just prolific in Eugene. And Dickey got offered a couple weeks ago. It was an offer that he was waiting for a while. I talked to him after that offer, and he said, "Hey, childhood goal accomplished for now." But this guy's got an awesome head on his shoulders. He was one of the best receivers at the opening when I saw him in Los Angeles, regardless of the class. Was certainly one of my top performers, and I think that it's crucial for the Ducks to get in with him, especially with him coming from Northern California, a state that has California overall, right? A state that has been very kind to the Ducks and certainly serves as a building block for most of their classes.
Right. I think that that's a big storyline with both Tucker and Florence, and then Dickey as well, kind of reestablishing Oregon in California, because these last few cycles, they had a big cycle in California in 2019, I believe, with Kayvon Thibodeau and Mace Funa. And then more recently, they've kind of dipped into some other areas, dipped into Arizona, Texas, Nevada. But at the end of the day, California, if you're a West Coast program like Oregon, is the state that you're going to have to compete heavily in and win some big battles in. And so I think that Dickey is a big name in that pursuit in the 2023 class for sure.
Yeah, they certainly got, I think that I was just looking at it right now. They had 4 or 5 guys from California in that 21 class, Carbo being the most recent arrival, along with Jonathan Flo. But yeah, so we had Dickey, and then we had 2 more guys on the list that we wanted to talk about, and then we kind of wanted to just wrap it up with some kind of more broad storyline. So you want to take those guys?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So the first one off the list for me is running back. I think he's a borderline 5-star. Maybe you can check that rating for me. Ruben Owens out of Texas. He's a guy who has been going back and forth a little bit on Twitter with Kelvin Banks, the 5-star tackle from 2022 that committed to the Ducks, also out of Texas, obviously. I think that a lot of Ducks fans are excited about bringing in a real signature piece at running back in probably not this 2022 cycle, but potentially in 2023. And Ruben Owens is really at the top of the list in terms of dynamic playmakers with the ball in their hand. I think that, it's still early on in that recruitment, obviously, but him coming out here to make this trip shows that he has, at least some interest in the Ducks. And hopefully, if things go well, they can put themselves in the right position going forward over the next year or so to be right in the top group of contention for Ruben Owens. And then the second guy I wanted to talk about too was Roderick Robinson. He's someone who's a bit lower rated right now, but I think that he has a great chance to develop and pop in the over the next coming year as we see evaluations kind of catch up after the lull of COVID with camps like this one and others. Get recruits getting a better chance to kind of have a more accurate rating being put out for them. But the big storyline with Roderick Robinson is that he's also a teammate of Jaleel Tucker and Jaleel Florence at Lincoln High School in San Diego. So I think that the potential to keep building that San Diego pipeline is very promising. And Roderick Robinson seems like one of the next big names that the Ducks could pursue in San Diego in the 2023 class.
Yeah, when you're looking at the Oregon running back kind of room, and I think right now they have a great mixture of bodies, right? You have CJ Gurdell, who's a little bit on the smaller side. I want to say he's around 5'9", 5'10". Maybe someone can fact check me on that, but he put on significant weight, and is definitely in the 200, 205 range now. I know that the Ducks are working on updating their roster, but I say that because when you're looking at Robinson, he's, hasn't even played a snap in his junior season yet, and he's already at 6'1", 220, which is, a pretty big body for a running back. So when, the Ducks are trying to get a mixture of bodies, you have kind of, your actually, what was I going to say? Thunder and lightning. That's what I was looking for.
Right.
You have, you have Travis Dye, who has a bunch of bursts. Who knows if he'll be back after this next season? After the last season he had was just so great. But you definitely want to have, a big body that can, do some damage for you. Running between the tackles there.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned really well summarizing that Oregon running back room right now. It has been a lot of Verdell and Dye, and obviously Cyrus Habibi Likio before his transfer over the past few years. And I think we're on the precipice after maybe this upcoming season of kind of seeing a changing of the guard in that running back room and some younger guys coming in and taking advantage of some opened up playing time if the veterans do decide to leave. So I think that's an exciting thing. And obviously, Oregon fans are accustomed to really high level play at running back throughout the Ducks history. So I think a lot of them are excited to continue that tradition in the next generation.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we're already around 20 minutes here, Reed. So I wanted to take a quick sidebar and ask you for your opinion on an Oregon football question. I don't want this to come off in any kind of a negative way, but I'm kind of the opinion that I want to see the next great Oregon running backs, right? We've had Verdell and Dye and toting the rock, and they've both been really really good. But I just think with like we've seen some departures like Cyrus Bibilikio, but there's so much hype. I feel like it's like the bubble's about to burst, right? When you're looking at some of the other running backs. So the question that I kind of had for you, is how important is it for Oregon to hit at the running back position, hit on the running back position, I should say, following those departures, and who are you kind of looking at?
Yeah, I think that it's really going to be pretty crucial to hit on the running back position. I mean, it does depend because obviously the Ducks brought in two really good backs in the last cycle with Seven McGee and Byron Cardwell. And so we'll see how their development pans out. I think there's a potential for Seven to maybe switch over more to a slot position or kind of a offensive Swiss Army knife like we've seen out of DeAnthony Thomas in the past. But the big thing is that there isn't really a proven commodity on the Oregon roster after Verdell and Dye leave because they've been so successful and taken up so many of the carries during their time here. So I think that it's going to be crucial to hit on someone in 2023 because as we see, there isn't really a major name that surfaced in 2022 that's a primary target at this time. That could potentially change in the future, but I think that right now that 2023 class is the one that is circled for the Ducks to try to land a top level running back.
For sure. Yeah, and then I did just fact check for you. Ruben Owens is rated a 5-star on 247 Sports, number 2 running back in the country on the composite. So that's certainly to get a guy with that kind of acumen on campus is super big for the Ducks. So let's roll along. We have a couple more points we want to get to here in this SNL preview pod. I want to talk about the SoCal presence, which is so big. I feel like we've already talked about Lincoln quite a bit. That's with the 2 Jalils and Robinson. But let's talk about Mater Dei. I feel like Oregon is on a bit of a hot streak when it comes to landing someone from Mater Dei. I want to say they've done it for 3 or 4 years now. At this point, in the most recent cycle, 2021, they got cornerback Jalen Davies, but it's so crucial for them if they want to stay recruiting at the clip that they are to establish pipelines to these specific schools. And we have a bunch of guys from Mater Dei coming that we've confirmed so far. Just in the 2022 class, we have, I hope I'm saying this right, Jacob Kongaika. He's a big defensive lineman from Mater Dei, and then we also have linebacker Leviticus Sua. Another big body on defense. So big for them to be coming in. And then we also have, looking all the way ahead to the 2024 class, outside linebacker Ramir Davis. He's the younger brother oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm forgetting this. Rajon, thank you. Wow, I just had a total brain fart moment. Reed saves the day. Younger brother of Rajon Davis, who's at USC now. We have Kyron Ware Hudson, who is at USC after being committed to Oregon for a really long time. His brother, Keon, is here as well. So kind of just wanted to throw that out there, how important it is for Oregon to be present at Mater Dei and just keep that relationship strong, especially in SoCal.
Right. I think that, really when you look at, nationally in college football, Mater Dei is one of the first names you list as the biggest programs. You have, IMG Academy, you have St. John Bosco close to them, and a few other big ones. But I think, Mater Dei is huge. And in the landscape of the Pac-12, traditionally Mater Dei has been kind of a pipeline directly to USC, a lot of talented players in their history have ended up doing big things for the Trojans. And I think that if Oregon wants to take over this conference and continue, to extend their streak of conference championships under Mario Cristobal, kind of establishing roots in that modern day program is going to be a big part of it, because you just know every year that they're going to have, a handful of blue chip prospects, it seems like. So yeah, that's a huge point to hit on.
Yeah, for sure. So let's see what our next point was. Hopefully this isn't feeling too rushed, but just had two more things we kind of wanted to talk about. Just when we're looking at the timing of this event, Reed, it's we're starting fall camp next week. So really just at the tail end of summer, or I guess right at the beginning of the end of the summer. It's just so important for Oregon to have this event, I feel like, because Mario Cristobal has made a habit of doing most of his heavy lifting in the spring and summer months. Season comes around, you can focus on the on-field product, and then depending on how well you're doing, maybe even look all the way ahead to 2023. But I think what it kind of boils down to is you get, the strong foundation of your class. Certainly have that with some of the offensive line guys, and then you also have, you can, by doing that is what I should say, you can kind of get yourself ready and buy some time to focus more on the heavy hitters, right? Those 5-star guys that like to draw out the recruiting process. What are your kind of thoughts there with kind of the strategy at play with the timing of this event?
Yeah, I think that, this is the big event really at the end of the day in Oregon recruiting alongside the spring game. And so it's important to time it right. I think that, yeah, this comes at a great point with, those guys that we have mentioned, Cyrus Moss, Jaleel Tucker, Kevin Coleman, Jaleel Florence, to kind of, right as we head into their senior seasons, solidify Oregon in that top group and heavy contention for them. And then, like you said, the thing about recruiting is that it's constant. It never stops. And, just when you finish one cycle, you're already building towards what you're going to do in the next cycle or 2 cycles from then even. And so for Oregon, I think they've made a point of trying to fill up this 2022 class, or at least create kind of a solid foundation for this class early on, so that they can start doing the kind of early legwork for future classes. And that's what this event is about, kind of building the Oregon brand and extending it from kind of this abstract thing related to Nike and the offense and the uniforms and the flash, and kind of grounding it in the actual community of Eugene and the campus and Autzen Stadium. Because, as we know, so many players from around the nation are attracted to the University of Oregon. But I think that this really makes that kind of dream school tagline come to reality when you actually play in Autzen Stadium alongside other really talented players, and you kind of come to understand what it's really like to, or what it would really be like to go to school at Oregon.
You're spot on right there, Reed, with the whole dream, narrative, dream dialect. We've talked to multiple guys that have made the trip out to Eugene for visits this summer. And, we asked them, what's it like when you were able to have that Oregon uniform on and be inside Autzen Stadium? And they're like, hey, it was like a dream. And, that just speaks volumes to the staff and the culture that they've been able to create, and the environment, the vibe. That's all at play. And we're going to see it all at play tomorrow. But kind of what I wanted to end it on here. We've kind of speculated on some commitments, but for someone who doesn't follow recruiting, isn't like a diehard recruiting, fan, if that's the right word to say, Reed, just kind of break it down for me without having the spring game this year, which is another big event for Oregon as far as recruiting goes. Just how important is this event for Oregon?
This is the biggest day on the calendar in terms of recruiting outside of National Signing Day, it feels like at this point. This is when you bring everyone into town, and like I said, they get to feel what it would really be like to go here, and also to play alongside some of their potential teammates. So for the Ducks, I mean, the big goal out of this weekend is just to have things go well, generally have people enjoy their time in Eugene, but also potentially to land a few commitments. I mean, I think that you could declare this event a success if you got a commitment from Cyrus Moss, say, or Jaleel Tucker, maybe. I think are two that Ducks fans are hoping for, that are at least a possibility. And like you said, I mean, Sir Mel's committed right on the O in the center of Autzen Stadium when he was here. So we've seen this type of recipe come to fruition before. And so I think that those are big names. And, you know, like you said, those are kind of the heavy hitters remaining in 2022, the big targets. So just, you know, kind of ticking off another one of those recruitments and getting that, securing that commitment will make the staff that much more able to focus on the upcoming season and all of the tests that go along with actually playing the football games on the field this fall.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned Cyrus Moss. You know, he's unless there's been like a huge change. When I last spoke with him, he was saying he's looking for kind of a November decision timeline. I think he has a couple of official visits. He told me he was trying to take in the fall. I believe those two are Clemson and Florida. Someone might have to fact check me on that. But to go to your point on how big this is, maybe it goes well enough where he says, "Hey, I'm ready to shut it down." Like this is his second trip to Oregon this summer, which is so big. Geography given Oregon a little bit of an assist here with him being from Vegas, but that's huge for the Ducks. Tons and tons of big names coming into Eugene for this event. Saturday Night Live. We have a running visitor list up on Ducks Digest. Make sure to stay tuned into our site. Reed and I will be there on scene tomorrow to tweet out photos, videos, various updates. But huge weekend for the Ducks. You don't want to miss out, and you can catch all the action on Ducks Digest.